Now we'll talk about cubic graphs. Cubic graphs oftentimes have strange shapes to them. In general, they look rather squiggly. Not the most technical term to describe it, but it's good enough for our purposes today. Now, a cubic function can either look like x raised to the third power or 3x's multiplied together. You can see in the function I have on the left, we have a conventional x to the third power function. The function on the right looks fairly complicated, but the most important thing is that you have 3x's in a multiplication chain, which I'm underlining now. We'll learn more about how to analyze those in the next unit. For now, let's just examine the domain. On the graph on the left, you may notice that we have an arrow that's pointed mostly downward, but it's still pointing vaguely left. We'll count that as our left arrow. And as we know, where domain is concerned, our left arrows symbolize negative infinity. We also have another arrow pointed mostly up, but still slightly diagonally to the right. And where domains are concerned, a right arrow represents infinity. Because we have a left and a right arrow, our domain will be negative infinity to infinity. This will always be the case for cubic functions. Now notice that since we have a down arrow and an up arrow, again we have both infinities for range, because down represents negative infinity for range, and up represents positive infinity for range. Therefore, just like domain, range will be negative infinity to infinity. This will always be the case for cubic functions. Therefore, we can answer the domain and range question right now for both graphs. We'll say that no matter how complicated that function on the right looks, the domain and range are still negative infinity to infinity. Now let's find f of 2. Now notice that our x value of 2 is not on the picture on the left. The graph just increases too quickly. So we'll just let x equal 2 and plug that in to our function, wherever the x is. So we will take that x equals 2 and raise that to the third power. 2 to the third power is equal to 8, and that will be our answer. On the graph on the right, our 2 is clearly marked at this position which I'm placing a red dot on. Since that is right on the axis, that means our y value is 0. So we will say f at 2 for the second graph is 0. So it's important to understand that no matter how we write a cubic graph as x to the third power or a multiplication chain of x's, that doesn't change the domain or the range.